we are very fortunate to have Robert Beck here. He's a nationally known artist, and he's been here before. I'm very grateful that he's done this for us. His paintings have been the subject of in-depth museum exhibitions at the Michener, the museum at Ellerslie, and the Marine Maritime Museum. A retrospective of his work will be at the Michener Museum opening August 2021. So I'm looking forward to that. About time. Robert was a finalist for the Pew Fellowship and was awarded the Philadelphia Sketch Club Medal for Excellence in Contribution to the Arts. He was the honored artist at the 2017 Phillips Mill exhibition and was celebrated as the New Hope Arts Center Legacy Artist in 2018. You probably have read his column. He has been writing, is entitled 1,000 Words in Icon magazine since 2005, which has 75,000, a readership of 75,000. So I'm so grateful that you're here again, and thank you. And I'll let you take over from now.
Thank you, Jan. I'm very pleased to be here. I think this is probably like the 8th time I've spoke to this group, and it's my favorite gig of the year. Everybody is so warm, and they're knowledgeable, they're friendly, they ask great questions. And the thing that makes me sad is I'm not there in front of you to react with you. I'm gonna miss the laughter because they've always been fun experiences for me. What I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna show you about 20 paintings, and each one of these paintings I selected because they have an element that I can talk about that's about technique or how they came about that you might find interesting. And if you're an artist, you might be able to use the information. And if you're just an art appreciator, you might be able to use the information to look at other paintings and enjoy them more. I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to just expand a little bit on the Michener show. The show next year opens in August. It'll probably be 50 or 60 paintings. The opening will be in September. It runs until January. Now, we're also creating a in-depth catalog so that what we're not able to cover in the show itself, all the different facets of my work, will be covered in the catalog, and that excites me. It's going to be a beautiful book, and it'll be around long after the museum show comes down. Also, many people have asked me about icon articles and, hey Bob, when are you going to do a book? And the answer is we're doing it right now. We're in the editing phase. It's going to be part of the family of this show. It's going to fill that little hole that the paintings in the book, the catalog don't fill. That will be, it'll be done at the turn of the year, the catalog in spring and the show in summer. But they're all under the auspices of the Michener Museum, and it's up to them when they're made available to the public. So, do you have any questions about that before I move on to the presentation?
Just that David Leopold is.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention the fact that this has been curated by David Leopold, and I'm sure
he's a favorite of ours too.
A lot of you are familiar with how entertaining he is. He is also very capable, very knowledgeable, and I am very lucky to have him organizing this show for me. So it's going to be top notch, and I'm very excited about it.
It's a lot of work. You're going to have to be doing a lot of work.
I've started. Yeah, I'm a busy boy right now.
Mm-hmm.
So All right, I'm gonna throw up my. I'm gonna put up my. Where did it go? That's not it. Delval. PowerPoint. Hold on a second. You have me, and I'm going to try and get that. I'm up there, right? Are you seeing the presentation?
We see you and we see your Zoom screen.
And it says Robert Beck.
No, that's not up. You have to go back to share again.
Okay. I got to stop share. I got to start share again. All right. It was up there for me. Do you have it?
Yes, we have it now.
Okay, great. Sorry for that. It always works until you need it. I'm going to start out by showing you a few plein air pieces from this year. And the first one is I did in Stockton. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is to explain something that all plein air artists have to deal with, and that's the fact that you're there and the sun moves. The time doesn't wait for you. And when you're looking at this painting, you can see this very strong shadow going across the bottom of the painting at an angle, pointing roughly towards about 2 o'clock on the clock face. Now, either if it wasn't there when I started or it wasn't there when I ended, one of the two, because over the course of 3 hours, that would have swung quite a bit. Now, as an artist, I have to decide, am I painting this painting to where all of this stuff will be at the end of the painting, or am I painting it the way it looks when I start and trying to remember where everything was? If we assume that this is the way the landscape looked at the end, then chances are all of these shadows, you have this big one in the front, and you have this one, and you have this one, and this one, and this one. All of these have to conform to the same angle. The sun's in the same spot. The shadows have to go the same direction. When we started, they were all in a different direction. And you have to be careful as you go through the painting that you don't do one shadow, then another shadow, and another shadow, and they all end up pointing in a different direction. Also, notice that, or consider the fact that with the sun casting the shadow in this direction, it's also brighter on this side. If you can see that white house in the back, the sun would be brighter on this side of the house. But when we're starting, the shadows are pointing more upright in the picture, chances are this side of the house was brighter than the front. So all of these things are changing in front of you. And the artist, the plein air artist, has to arrive at a system where he can lock all this information down so that it doesn't contradict itself when the painting is done. Did everybody follow that? Okay. I can't hear you. This is a, thank you, Robin. This is a painting from Beals Island up in Maine, and I threw this up here because the story behind it is I had done this on Beals Island, and that evening I took it to the library because I was giving a talk like this about my painting up there, and I brought it live so everybody could look at it. Now, during the course of painting this painting, I moved things around. I put them in position so that compositionally it makes for a good painting. And this tall utility pole, it wasn't there in my view when I was painting. It was like over in here at the top of the boat, and it wasn't helping at all. So I slid it back over here, adjusted the lines, and it helps with the composition. I took it in, I'm giving my talk and pointing to it and telling people, and I realized I hadn't painted the bottom of the utility pole because it wasn't there when I was looking in that area. Oh, let's go back. Sorry. Because you can get locked into sort of taking an isolated area and replicating it on your painting and not standing back and making sense of the whole view. So when I got back to my cabin after giving the demonstration, I quick put in the bottom of the pole and the shadow. But that happens to you while you're doing these things. Now this is a plein air painting. This is 18 by 24 inches, so it's sizable. Since I did it inside, the lighting doesn't change as much. There's the lights diffused coming in through these windows, and I have more time to work on something and have it stay the same, looking the same. The problems with this one were I'm actually very close to this ladder here. I'm close to the front of the boat, and it causes perspective problems. But the thing I wanted to talk to you about here is you've heard about warm and cool colors. And warm colors advance, cool colors recede. And that's pretty much where they stop talking to you. And the truth of this is it's about warmer colors and cooler colors, not warm and cool. Yes, orange and red are warm. Yes, blue and green are cool. But you can have two blues and one is warmer than the other. You can have two reds and one is cooler than the other. And it's a matter of understanding that you can warm things up, you can cool things down, and get them to move around on this two-dimensional surface to suggest that there's a third dimension happening. And I wanted to create a belly to this boat. I wanted it to seem like it's curving out, like there's an inside to it, a volume. And how you give things depth, how you get them to move around. It's not just warm and cool. If you sharpen an edge up, it will want to advance. If you raise the purity of a color, bring it away from gray and a little bit more towards a pure color, it will want to advance. There's a number of things you can do. When you give something energy, it'll come at you. And you can see where this area of the boat, I've graded down. It's not quite as crisp as it is here. And so I'm actually massaging the side of this boat, getting it to bow out towards you. It also has an edge here, a crispness that makes you look at it, and everything else becomes peripheral in this painting. So there are three paintings done from life out in the field. And now I'm going to take you into the studio and show you a couple more. Are there any questions at the moment? Am I going too fast?
Yeah.
No, Robert,
Yeah.
it's Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
The color that you chose for the windows, are they windows in the back? Because I love that.
There's actually, he has, the window in the back here is looking out on the bay, so you're just seeing sky, and I just wanted, I mean, I'm not going to put a cloud in there. It becomes a little bit too confusing for everybody. I just wanted light.
Okay.
These up here, these are these strange green fiberglass rippley panels.
Gotcha.
Up in there, and it becomes, how accurate do I really want to be with this thing? And I really just wanted to say window without shouting window. I wanted to say sort of window, so that you don't get caught up in it. Now, I'm doing that kind of massaging the whole time. I'm looking at it and saying, is that yelling at me? Do I really want that to be part of the story? And as you can see over here on the right, that's a workbench that's filled with all kinds of tools and paints
Great.
and stuff like that. And I'm not painting the elements. I'm painting the tool benchness of it. So anyway, we'll move on. Any other questions about this?
I'm sorry, just above the boat.
Yeah.
What's, I see timber. In between the pieces of timber, what is that?
Corrugated metal and
Gotcha. Okay.
and insulation, ripped insulation.
Gotcha.
It's a potpourri of what do I do about that?
Okay. Gotcha.
Painting, because it's when it gets that specific and that unusual, it's really hard to give it a true identity without confusing the viewer. It becomes about that, and I don't want it to be about that. And I want it to be blue so it stays back there.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Bob, I have a question. Rick,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I missed it. Did you say what medium you're painting in?
Oil. This is oil on panel. Everything you see will be oil on panel.
No, okay.
Because I like painting on a smooth surface, and I like a firm surface. I don't like painting on a stretched canvas because I don't like the give at the end of my brush. When I do paint a large painting on canvas, I staple the canvas to the wall so it's firm. I just thought one of the advantages of doing a Zoom presentation is as you get to turn the audio off and just look at the pictures if you get tired of me. So we good to move on?
Who's the model that's at the rear of the boat on the left?
Oh, Doug Dodge, he's the guy building the boat. Okay, we've come into the studio, and I wanted to, since I was talking about warm and cool colors, I wanted to just show you something. This pitcher of maple syrup has a definite belly to it. Now, when I start painting it, I just put in this area, I put a dark brown, which becomes a starting point for the adjustments I make. And I'll put a reflection on this side, a reflection on this side, bounce off the tabletop and so forth. But I want you to notice that right in here, there is just a patch of, the color is called Caput Mortem Violet. And it's one of these dangerous colors because it is so powerful. It's like Prussian blue. If you've ever lost control of your Prussian blue or like your lemon yellow, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can never get it out of your brushes. It just like runs wild. It's so strong. This Caput Mortem, which does mean in Latin deadhead. So that was around before Jerry Garcia. There's just a swipe of it in here, and it's this warm wine color. Now, it's not any lighter than the brown that's around it. One of those tests for value of lightness and darkness that an artist learns is you squint at something. And when you squint at it, you can see the basic values of everything. And you can see that everything that's going on, except for the reflections, everything that's going on in that maple syrup is pretty much the same value. But if you look at it with your eyes wide, you can see it's very warm in here. And you can see it advance towards you. That thing just bows right out at you. Whereas the rest of it, with all this kind of blah gray stuff going on, folds back and makes this a very round portion of the painting, especially compared to everything else. It's very rich. Now, I was up at Manoff's Orchards, taking a walk this spring, and I picked up some cuttings. They had pruned the trees, and cuttings just had the buds on them, and took them back home, put into the studio, put them in a mason jar with some water, and in the next few days watched it bud like this, bloom like this, did a painting of it, and then of course they started falling off. And I enjoyed seeing that process happen in my studio. So what I did was I went back to Manoff's, and where am I here? Picked up some more small cuttings that hadn't started to bloom yet. And I stuck them in a mustard jar. I took a 18 by 24 panel, which is fairly large, and divided it with charcoal into 8 separate sections. And over the course of 12 days, as the branches bloomed, I did a series of paintings. Now, this is 8 paintings over 12 days. They're all 9 by whatever that would be, 9 by 6, I guess. And what I find interesting about this is every day I came in and I mixed a new palette. It's the same palette that I used in my basic palette. This is a lot of earth colors, a lot of basic colors, nothing really fancy, a warm and cool of most things. But you can see that over the course of 12 days, essentially the light coming in was the same, everything was the same, but there's just so many interpretations going on here, especially with the mustard jar. If you take each one singly, you might assume that that's exactly what the mustard jar looked like. But if you look at all of them, you realize that each time I'm like either coming close or interpreting it a little bit differently, and who cares? As a whole, I think I enjoy looking at this painting and seeing the passage of time. Because most of the paintings you see, most of them will have a fully developed flower, or some of them will have the old decrepit dying flower, but you don't get to see the whole process. Let's see what we have next. This is one of my favorite paintings from this year. This is Christmas last year, our family, and although there's 2 people missing, one of them is me. This is not me. This is another guy that's losing his hair. I have both the daughters, both their significant others, the wife and the fiance, some best friends, and it's something I've always wanted to do because it's always been at my disposal. And it's a thing. I paint things out of my life, and this is an important part of my life. I would have preferred to have done it from life, and I couldn't do that because it just wasn't feasible. Christmas is a very complicated day. We actually make 2 dinners that day, 2 complete dinners. And one of them is our family dinner, and I have a role to play in the kitchen, and which I enjoyed doing. It just wasn't feasible, so it became a studio painting. Now, I didn't intend that it be portraits of the people that are taking part in it, but if you know the people, you could look at this and you'd know who they were. This guy, Neil, love Neil, friend of the family, as part of the Christmas celebration, gave me an Etch-a-Sketch. And I mean, what are you going to give me? You know, he gave me an Etch-a-Sketch, and it was funny. And so what I did was I did a drawing of Neil on the Etch-a-Sketch, and so he has that. That was my gift back to him. So, moving on to serious studio work here. A lot of what I'm doing lately, being in these years, has been responding to atmosphere. By the way, I should ask, any questions so far?
Was that a photograph in that last picture? Did you photograph it?
I photographed the people and I photographed the room, but there's significant modification to that. There's no photograph that looks like that. But yeah, I used photographic reference material for that. Anybody else?
I'm impressed by your Etch-a-Sketch skills.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you put in the table and the lamp? Or is it actually there in your dining room? The table and the lamp?
Yes.
Is that actually in your dining room, or did you put that in?
Oop, let's get back.
Yeah.
This?
Right, yes.
That's in there.
Okay.
It's not right there. I had to condense the room. Otherwise, if I left the room as expansive as it was, the subject itself would have gotten too small, or I wouldn't have had these elements to flesh out the sides of the painting. So I'm moving things around here and describing some things differently than they are.
Is that your painting in the background?
Excuse me?
Is that your painting in the background?
No, there are other people's paintings. I see enough of my paintings, thank you. Jan, did you have a question?
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of paintings in our house and even in my studio, and perhaps you'd be surprised at how many of them are other people's. Now, this is very often lately, what I'm doing is I'll see something and it'll catch my attention and I'll wonder, how would I paint that? And there's something about it that makes me want to paint it, but the subject itself, I don't want to paint. So what is it? It's what's happening, the light, the atmosphere, something like that. But I don't know what my subject is going to be yet. And so over time, I'll just keep it filed in there someplace. And this is a case like that where I've seen fog lift because it's warmed by the morning sun, especially when I go down to the bridge to Stockton. You go across that and you see all kinds of fog and morning effects to the weather. The fog will lift. It'll lift because the sun's coming in from the side. The morning sun crests the horizon, comes in from the side, warms it up. It starts to lift. And the fog is still up here, but the light is sort of raking across the surface of the water. And I decided to take a shot at that using this is a dragger. It's a boat. I see them a lot up in Maine, and they swing a big scoop off the back, drag it along the floor of the bay or the ocean or something, and scoop up shellfish. So this is where your mussels come from. And I used this boat as a model and then decided and invented how the light would appear on it. So I have the light coming in from the side here. What happens in fog is that the light is very diffused and you don't get shadows. Shadows are an absence of light, and in the fog, the light's coming in from a lot of different directions, and the shadows either lighten dramatically or they disappear. So that's something that all has to agree. the light's coming in here, but on a sunny day, there'd be a big contrast to the sides, this side of the boat, the front of the boat here, all of that sort of stuff. The contrast would get very high in this thing. I also included, a lot of the boats go out, they have LED lights on the front. And that's a big thing with boats nowadays. They turn those on and it just sort of brightens up everything in front of them. It's not like this dinky little spotlights they used to have. So this guy's left his LED light on as he's come back into the harbor for whatever reason. I've decided he did that. And so it's like playing around. What would that look like? I did that and I said, yeah, that's what that would look like. And I'm happy about that. So there's my little journey in this painting of playing around with the light and the atmosphere. Questions? Stunned into silence, I see. Okay, this is every year or every show cycle, I allow myself to keep one painting, and this is going to be it. I'm very happy with this. I wanted to do a dramatic Winslow Homer-esque Man in the Sea, Hemingway, all that sort of stuff. Painting, a dramatic painting that contrasted the working lobsterman and his vulnerability against the might and the mass of the sea. And this is one of the few paintings that I've done a preliminary sketch for. And one of the reasons why I don't like to do painting sketches is the pleasure I get out of a painting like this is discovering how to make it work. It's what happens when I'm painting. At the end of it, I look at the painting and that's the result. It's the landing place. It's where I ended up. But what I remember is the work and the decisions and the mistakes and the corrections and the things I did right and getting to this end. And when I work a sketch to try and figure out these problems, if the sketch works really well, then I feel like I've accomplished what I wanted to do. It's like I've let the gas out of the bag and I kind of don't feel like doing the big painting anymore. So I have to be very careful with the sketches, make them quick so that I don't learn too much. And I hope that makes sense to you, but that's how I go about things, or at least painting. And what I wanted to know was this color thing that I was going to attempt, because these oilskins are, they're orange for safety reasons. It's something that you don't play with. That's what you got to have for it to be an accurate painting. And I've got these blues that I've got to make go off into the distance. And so I've been playing orange against blue can be a dangerous game. So I'm going to show you, this sketch is 4.5 inches by 6 inches. It's small. It's probably smaller than what you're going to see on your screen. And it's kind of remarkable how close it is to the finished painting, which is 24 inches by 30 inches. I don't know what that is. It's probably 12 or 16 times as big, you know? But the only difference is the shape, the aspect ratio of it. Actually, if you were to crop that much off the left-hand side here, it would be pretty much what that big painting looks like. So I'm gonna go back and give you this. There's a maturity to a picture, this picture, an integrity. It's like this is a grown-up version of this. But the information is kind of still there. I looked at this and I said, man, if I can get what I got here in the big one, I'm going to be very, very happy. but it's not developed enough. So especially since it's only 4 by 6 inches, it's not developed enough that I figure, okay, I got this, I can move on. I'm gonna let you look at that big one again, just because it's a powerful painting. There's a lot to look at.
It's spectacular.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy with this.
How long did the final painting take you, Robert?
A painting like this generally is going to take me 5 or 6 days to execute. Once I go to the brushes and the oil paint, there's usually a day of doing a monochromatic underpainting. That's only a day, because if I'm doing that, I'm doing wipe off, I'm doing lift off and stuff like that to create this monochromatic painting. It's a sketch, really, just to locate where everything is and maybe where the value system is going to be. That monochromatic painting, the paint itself, is going to start seizing up after about 5 or 6 hours, and it's not going to want to lift off. It's not going to want to do what I want it to do. So I really only have 6 hours or so to make that portion happen. Wait a day for it to firm up, and then start going in with color and feeling my way around. This is what, there's very little that I changed. I did some changing, and I was chasing the arms around a little bit. You just can't fool with anatomy. You can't be almost right with anatomy. Everybody's too familiar with that, and something will seem wrong. I love the arms. I love this definition in these heads. It all works really well to me. I'm very pleased with it. This ain't going nowhere.
It's beautiful. I feel like I'm moving with those waves.
Oh yeah. It makes me a little dizzy when I first look at it.
Energy. Yeah.
Just beautiful.
How did you go from the 4 by 6 to the larger version?
It's a matter of, it's just, since the first step is charcoal and locating where it is, it doesn't have to be exact. It just has to do the same thing. And locating the people and the size, I have to be really happy with that in charcoal. And it's just shapes. But I got to feel that they're all in the right place, that there's no repetition. There's not, the space here isn't the same as the space here, isn't the same as the space here. I don't want there to be a repetition. I don't want there to be a rhythm. I want there to be a discomfort. So there's these things I'm looking for on a big scale. Then when I do the monochromatic underpainting, it locks things in place and deals more with the values. And it takes me a step closer. Is the next thing right? And I go through the next thing and the next thing until, and take care of the problems when I first see them. But you will find later in some of the next paintings, there are things that right at the end, I change things up. So.
Thank you. Great explanation.
I'm sorry, this is Sharon again. When you say you want there to be a discomfort, is that specific to this painting, or do you always search for that?
No, I'm always aware if there is a rhythm or repetitive nature to something, what is that bringing to the painting? What is that saying? What's the person that's looking at it hearing when they see that? Because they're going to know it. It's that thing that happens when you have like a rail fence on the side of a road that goes to the vanishing point, or the railroad ties. There's a thing that does in your head. There's a sort of a music it plays. There's a soundtrack to that, and I don't want that. I don't want you to be able to hold on to anything familiar. I want you to be looking around for some kind of anchor. When I have a painting like this, there are times when I can use that effect to my advantage to create a sense of, let's call it security or predictability.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get
Can I make a comment on the last painting?
Sure.
Rick Goldberg. In some ways, when I saw your sketch, I looked at it and I said, wow, I really like that. It was almost as if like seeing the finished product, the realistic looking painting, then versus an impressionistic painting.
Yeah.
The impressionistic painting, to me, if it was big, maybe larger, might be comparable to the finished product, but in a different way.
No, I agree with you 100%. They're different paintings though. I would really love to be able to like get big brushes and big puddles of paint and do that small sketch this size. I've never been able to pull that off, especially since I always end up, it's the second time. And the second time, you're going right to what you see rather than going through all the steps. You're not making the mistakes. You're not covering things up. There's a lot of reasons why, I'm tempted to say an artist, but it's me. There's a lot of reasons why I can't quite do that. I'd like to be able to, but I'm really happy with the way the big one ended up. So I'll take both of them and move on to the next thing. It's fine. They're all valid impressions. And if they inspire somebody, that's great. This painting is called Blue Boy. And the first thing you would notice if you saw this is that it's 6 feet by 6 feet. It's a big painting. It's a big whale. Whales are big. It's done in a very simple color harmony. It was raw sienna? No, raw umber. Raw umber, and I think I had 2 or 3 blues. It was the first painting I changed over from using the oil paint I was using. What was I using? What's probably the most popular one? I don't know why I'm blanking on it. But I changed to an upscale paint. And I was using the more commonly available paint because I travel a lot, and if I needed a new tube of paint, I wanted to be able to get it. If I was in a different part of the country or even in a different country. But now I'm experimenting with and using more and more Bissari paint, which is really good. Winsor Newton was what I was trying to think of. And it's a more expensive paint, but the pigment is a higher quality pigment. There's a higher concentration of it, all this sort of stuff. So it's fun to play with and see how I can make that work for me. But this one is a very simple color harmony, just a limited amount of colors. And part of what I was doing was try to create a depth. This thing that happens underwater where it seems to go on forever, but it's blue because of the reflection of the sky. And I didn't want a painting of a whale that made it feel like the water was surrounding him, was silhouetting him or her. I wanted there to be a depth. I wanted him to be floating in this volume of water. So that was the thing I was trying to make happen here. You can see how as you go back in the whale, you start to go gray-blue, which helps create this sense that there is a third dimension, that there is this obfuscation or it's a lack of clarity that happens as you go in the distance. It's pretty simple, but when you see it, it's powerful.
Where is that painting, Bob?
That's at the Morpeth Gallery at the moment. Once I closed my gallery, which was in Lambertville, and I guess 2 years ago, and just sort of a kind of a retirement kind of thing. I'm still painting, doing all that. I just don't have to run a gallery, which is nice. And have an arrangement. I'm being represented by Morpeth Contemporary, which is in Hopewell, New Jersey. And they have a number of my paintings there. And we will have a show that's concurrent with the Michener show sometime next year. There's going to be a lot going on next year. This is an invented thing. Again, I wanted to do a rain painting and the environment kind of thing. New York, this is Columbus Avenue, up near the Museum of Natural History. The rain and the clouds and the fog portion of it is invented, not invented. It's, I walk the dog, it's raining, there's fog, there's clouds. While I'm walking him, I'm looking around saying, what does this look like? How would I paint that? So I had these ideas about how I would make that work. And then I look for the model, the subject, and it's surprising. I say, okay, I want to find the right New York place that I'm going to do this weather to, and it takes a while to find it. Nothing quite strikes me as the right place. And I was with a friend, and we had gone to the museum, and we were going someplace else, and crossing Columbus, and I looked, I said, wait a second, and I took a couple of phone shots and used that as the buildings and the landscape, the cityscape, to do this rain and what was going on here. What you get here is the rain isn't, you don't paint the rain, you paint what the rain does. When it hits the ground, it comes down at an angle and creates a splash at an angle in the other direction, the incident and reflection kind of thing going on. You only see the evidence of the rain in the dark areas, like over here and in here. Otherwise, you don't notice it in the light areas as much. So there are areas when I was painting that I would paint. The brushwork would be at an angle, a consistent angle. So that would give you the idea that something is happening in that direction. But very often these are things I try to see if that will work. Will that make it seem like it's raining? When I run out of things to try, then the painting's done. And if I feel that the painting has something to it, then it doesn't get turned into something else, like coasters or things like that. You can move on.
I'm sorry, it's Sharon again. Just one thing that I love in that painting is the little walk sign where the light, I love that. I love it.
You know, that was one, you know, that's dangerous. You can make it too noticeable. You can make it not noticeable enough.
Perfect.
You do that if you can make it too big, too small, all those sort of things. I have the same thing happen when I have to decide if like in a distance, it's not a problem now. In a distance, there's the is it green or is it red?
Yeah.
Problem, and it makes a big difference.
Sure.
In your painting, whether it's a you got to stop for the red, or whether you go in the green, or is it even yellow? It makes a big difference. And I have a tendency to go with the red just because it's so exciting. But sometimes I go with the green. But you're right. I'm glad you saw this, because it's one of those things where I'm taking a half hour or an hour to figure out what's the right answer to what's going on here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this one, again, this is about 24 by 30. And I love the blue in this. And it's, and this yellowish. They just look so good with each other. When you go to New York, if you go to the tunnel, what's the name of the tunnel? It's the upper tunnel, Lincoln Tunnel. If you go to Lincoln Tunnel, you go up over the hill and then down to the helix, and you see this in front of you. You've got this going over you. You see this sticking out. You have to forgive me. I'm having a little problem with an aura I'm having at the moment. So it's getting a little noisy up here. So forgive me if I'm losing track of the objects I'm talking about. But this is something you see when you're coming towards the Lincoln Tunnel. And what's interesting, you might find interesting about that, is this building, the Empire State Building, is not the same from every direction. The two sides of this that you see that are three different, there are three things here. If the other two sides don't have those three qualities to them, the other two sides are essentially flat. But the Empire State Building, these three sides face north and south. You don't see them when you're coming towards the city from this direction. I've taken the Empire State Building and turned it so that it looks the way I want it to. And I can do that because it's my painting. Okay, here's, this is a painting I did after we had gone to California. One of our relatives had a wedding, and it was in Sonoma, and we had the fires. We could smell it. It was happening. We ended up having the wedding with a generator, and when we got back to the hotel, in the middle of the night we had to evacuate. Now there was no electricity. Fortunately, we had one flashlight that Doreen's mother had given us that is what you're looking at now is what I remember from the room. We had to pack up, we had to get in the car, and we had to get out of there. So when I got back home 2 days later, I did a painting of what I felt that room looked like at that time. And, you know, Doreen was on her phone. She's making, connecting with the people that had gone out with us. It was kind of a scary time. Some of the people had flown in and didn't have cars. So all of a sudden they had to leave, and we had to help them find ways to get out. It was kind of a scary time, and I decided to do it monochromatically. This is very much what one of my monochromatic things looks like. This is like 12 by 16. Questions? This is the painting that's in the Phillips Mill show at the moment. This is the one that I submitted, and it was accepted to that. It's a farm that's just outside of Stockton, down the bottom of the hill. If you were to head out to Flemington and go out to whatever it is, I forget what the number, 529. That's the first farm on the left going out there. Yeah, this is the Bodine's farm.
I think it's 563.
Five?
I take it all the time. It goes through Surgeonsville.
Yes. Yes. Now this is another farm. This is one I did. This is invention as well. I wanted to do the sunrise coming through the trees, and this is located where. No, this would be down. If you were to where 202 and 263 come together.
Paxson Hill.
Yes, exactly. It's the Paxson farm there, and this is. I think it's for sale or something. But for a while they were doing these what do you call it? This kind of bird. I'm sorry, it gets a little difficult at times. No, it's not chickens. It's the other one. Ducks. Yeah. I'm being helped. My wife has come. She's helped me out on this.
No, but I never could figure out what it was as I'm driving by.
Yeah.
So you've got an excuse.
It's ducks. And I had put this all together and decided that I wanted to have an inside. I wanted to see. They didn't have this, the doors open. I didn't know what the inside looked like. So I just invented it. I put the person there. I created a door, that's on the far side of the room. And so there's just more to look at, more going on here.
I have a question, Bob.
Sure. Was there somebody there?
She's not muted. She's muted, rather.
Jan, you're muted, Jan. Unmute yourself.
Or press the space bar.
There she goes.
I was pressing the space bar, but it didn't work. Julia Mapes asked, what sizes are these last paintings?
This one is 16 by 20, which isn't big compared to what I usually do for Phillips Mill. But I figured since it's not a show where you're going to see the paintings, usually I try to give them a good painting, a good size paintings. But I didn't have to do this for this one because they're all the same size because they're virtual. This one is, what was that? I think this is about 20 by 28 or something like that. Now this one, I'm sorry, there's a lot to talk about here, and I'm going to have a little bit of difficulty with this, but like all of us, we've had a really hard time over the last few months, and it was bothering me. There was so much going on between having to deal with the health problems, the politics, all of the things that were going on was beating us up, you know. And I wanted to do a painting that that just spoke about this time, how I feel about now. And I didn't know what to be painting. What should I be? I didn't want to paint about the politics. And so I ended up doing this painting about the health issue, you know, the COVID, and how I approached that was I just started I started scanning, going online and looking at everything to do with COVID, Googling everything. And I probably had about a couple hundred things that I had gathered and looked at, and I came up with a number of things that weren't just the medical part, but I was looking at pictures of people that were down the shore and having a good time. The young people that weren't wearing masks and stuff, and then there were the people that were in the bars, and they're having a good time and holding up their glasses, and I was even doing little drawings of people with their flags, waving flags over their head. This whole way everybody was looking at what was going on. And I started doing sketches. I have a sketchbook that has these quick sketches of the people in all of these photographs that I had saved, and including the people that were at the bars and the people that were waving the flags and so forth. And I did drawings for myself of what you're seeing now, the people dealing with the people that were sick, but also had people in between the people that were sick that were doing holding up their glasses at the bars and being down at the shore and so forth and waving flags. That was way too much going on. And then I backed up from that and decided I'm just doing the hospital stuff, and started deciding what are the doctors doing? Where do I put them? And towards the end, I think I worked on this for about 2 weeks painting alone, pretty solid, until I got to the end. And I think it was either the day before I was done or 2 days before I was done. And I put this person in, added this to the whole thing. just to give you a little bit of a something between you and everything else that's going on, just to give you kind of a something in the way, so you weren't just surrounded by everything. It's kind of a hard thing to look at, but when I was done, I felt like I had said what I wanted to say, or at least recorded what I wanted to record, and show how I felt about that. And I felt much better. I could move on, and I got past. I didn't have to say anything anymore. I could move on. Does that make sense? I'm sorry I'm having so much trouble not being clear like I usually am, but unfortunately, that's what's going on at the moment.
We have a question from Mary Matthews.
Yes.
Or a comment. She says, I love how artists have the opportunity to say something about our times. The fires in California, the COVID. I think just like Edward Hopper, it's a need we all have as artists to say something. And that's from Mary Matthews.
Yeah, that's very, very nice of her. Thank you very much.
She's an artist and a teacher.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really wish I could have done a better job of explaining, as I did at the beginning of when I was talking and gave you some really good views of what was going on.
The essay.
This is Sharon again. I don't know of anybody that has explained things. I'm going to try to do this without crying. Better than what you have done today. But this particularly, I think for me, I am not there yet in my process of dealing with this whole thing. I am still very much suffering. So I don't want to waste anybody else's time except to tell you that this is, to look at this, and I took a picture of it, will help me each day moving forward.
No, thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm glad to do that. And I have to do it for myself because it just beats me up if I don't. It's the way that I've learned to deal with it. It's just to speak about it, to move on, to put it in my, just find out what it is, speak about it, put it out there and move on. For what it's worth, this was in the Icon magazine, along with the story of it.
Okay.
That was September. That was the September issue. So you have an opportunity to read more about it than I've been able to say about it now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Bob, this is Gene. Could I talk with you about this?
Sure.
Great. So first of all, I love the shiny, clean floor. I find fascinating. It's like a painting in itself. And I wondered, have you ever painted a painting with so many figures in it?
There's a lot in this, you're right. I don't believe I have people who have been detailed like this. The only one that might be is the one I did. It was called Entourage, which was the people that were dressed up in the
oh yes, Halloween costumes.
The Halloween costumes, but they were small.
Yeah.
And they're not quite as detailed and not quite as worked as this one. Some of these people were added. Some of them were moved around. It took a while to get everything balanced out the way I wanted it.
Sure.
There was a lot of work that went into this, and so I don't think there's anything I've ever done that's like this.
Yeah.
Plus the fact it's 24 inches by 48 inches. It's 2 foot by 4 foot. It's a plenty big painting.
Yeah. Have you ever painted in this kind of lighting before? Because I would think that that was interesting to do, very, very different from what you usually tackle.
Well, I had to invent my own lighting for this because I'm putting together people from different things
Right.
that I've seen.
I understand.
And I wasn't here. I wasn't standing in the room here, and it really was just make it up as I go. A lot of the things that I saw at first that I collected and looked at, a lot of them, I just couldn't do anything with them. And at some point I had to decide, what is this going to look like? What is the environment that I'm going to create here? And it's actually not very familiar to what's going on now here in the United States at great places. This is more like what was going on at China at the beginning, because that's what was the stuff I was able to look at the time. So it has its own, it's a little bit different than you might expect if somebody else were to do it now about what's going on in the United States. But I don't think that matters. I think that what's going on in the United States, if you were to go into the hospital now, you would find individual rooms with people that are separated from everybody else. You would find that people are only seen by doctors 2 or 3 times a day, and the rest of the time they're isolated. So it's a whole different way things are being done at the moment. This was looked at through my initiative earlier, and it's almost like the way it would have been done a little while ago while they were trying to figure out just what the hell while this is going on. How do we approach this? And I'm okay with that, because that's kind of like how everybody was feeling as well at the time. So it makes sense, even though it's not super accurate. I don't care. It makes sense to me. And I got it out of my system, and that's what I needed to do.
Do you ever put titles on your paintings?
All my paintings have titles, and this is, I think, the only one I've done that I have yet to title. I call, just to keep it, to be aware of it, when I start working, I give it a title that I can refer to, and I call it Ward, was just so I could find it again. But that's not the name I'm going to end up with this, and I don't know what the name is going to be. I just don't know. I'm still dealing with this thing.
I also just wanted to say, you mentioned you put that figure in blue that's facing away from us.
Yes.
You added her later. I really think that makes it, you know, she really, or that person really draws you into the painting in a way that I don't think I would have experienced it if that person were not there.
Yeah, well, she's leading you in. She's pulling you in. You can walk behind her and feel safe doing that. The first thing I worked on with this is the doctor who is located right in front of you, holding the hands up in the air. The only time anybody holds their hands like that is when they're trying not to let them get dirty or involved in something. So she's taking care of herself. And these two are kind of like almost looking at each other. And it just, I can't give you firm explanations on a lot of these things, but it just felt like I'm going to do that. And when I did it, it felt okay. So I left it that way and moved on to the next thing. And sometimes I had to go back and pull something out and change it, because individually they were fine, but as a whole, this whole thing has to make sense to itself. You have to experience this thing yourself. And I don't want anything to stop you or to foil it or to make it something that it's not. I want your experience to deliver to you an understanding, if that makes sense. I want you to understand it through your language.
Bob, Rick,
Yep.
just a comment. There's so many things you can say about this piece of art, but I think what makes it really, really important is it's in such sharp contrast with what we're hearing out of our own government today. That I don't want to make it political, but it's like, I'm looking at this at the extreme illness and sickness and death in this picture, and the rosy picture that's coming out of our own government about not to worry, it's going to disappear, and everything else. Why don't you just call this picture the West Wing of today?
Yeah, well,
That's actually
that's
you gotta laugh.
funny. Yeah. How about it?
It's sad.
All right, this is about as much as I can stand of this picture. So I'm going to move on if it's okay. I only have a couple left here. I want to show you this painting because I want us to look at something that feels better. I did this painting. It's called Skating Party, and I had seen something, and I forget what it was, but in a picture I saw, I noticed the marks from skating on the ice, and the rest of it was totally invented. I decided to do it at night. Do a picture of skating at night. I wanted to have a fire and the reflections. But my memory of skating, and I used to do that a lot, my memory was always of rivers and even being on the river in some spots. And the texture of the ice, it was always a little bit ripply. There was always the scrapes and scratches and skate marks. So that there was always this kind of rumble when you were skating. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't like going to a skating place. So I wanted to do a painting of what it's like to be out at night at a party and just a feel-good painting. And that's what this is to me. It's a feel-good painting. It took a little while to get it just right. But it's about what it feels like and what it smells like and it's just what it's like to be there. And it's simple. And it's a nice place for me to be. I like looking at this.
How big is this painting, Bob?
Excuse me?
How big is this painting?
It's 24-inch square.
And where is it?
It's right here, and I'm waiting to hear from the Salmagundi Club whether it's been accepted to the members show or not. They're a little bit late on letting everybody know at the moment, so I don't know. But it's at the studio at the moment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of nice to look at, isn't it? It's just nice and quiet. It feels good.
For ice, it actually feels warm also.
Yeah.
Reminds me of when I was a little girl.
Yeah, right. Nice times, huh?
Yeah, sure was.
Yeah. Don't remember how, getting wet and falling down and how it hurt when you banged your knees and stuff. It just, you remember the good stuff. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you one more painting, and it's only because we're going to be coming up on lunchtime soon. So I just want to show you this one painting so that you're influenced. One of my favorites.
I love it.
My wife makes the absolute best grilled cheese sandwich in the world, and so this is a painting of one of them, and I thought I'd throw it out there so you knew what you're going to do next.
That tomato in there?
Yeah, tomato.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I'm having for lunch.
Yeah. So that's the end of what I brought. I'm sorry for in the middle where I got a little bit whatever it was, but it happens every now and then.
Sugar.
Yeah, it's a migraine thing, and I can't predict it. You know, if there's anything you want to know, feel free to ask me. I'm available to answer people even when I'm done this. So there's plenty to talk about. Anybody have anything?
Come on, guys.
What kind of cheese is in the sandwich?
What I asked for, what I asked for is good old American cheese, and I don't think anybody knows what's in that. But to me, it's got to be that a good American cheese. But who knows what that's made of?
Bob, I just took a picture of it and sent it to my wife in the kitchen with my order. They say one picture is worth 1,000 words.
There you go.
I just like to say I'm not an artist, so I very much appreciated how articulate you have been about sharing what your process is. So thank you.
Oh, you're really welcome. And I hope next time I can stay on top of it the whole time, because I really enjoy the opportunity to talk about my work to this group in particular. It's always a great experience for me. I learn a lot.
Luis is saying thank you. We'll look for your upcoming show at the Michener.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Luis said that. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you so much.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Dropping out.
Thank you.
It was great. Thanks.
Thanks very much.